Hey everyone, it's Norm Farrar, aka the Beard Guy here, and welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the Amazon and e-commerce podcast. Today we're going to be discussing how to pinpoint and eliminate wasted marketing when it comes to Amazon. Why should marketers care about incrementally? What is the state of marketing in the post iOS 14.5 world? And how to measure the effects of marketing channels that can't be tracked through usual means. So, welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the e-commerce and Amazon FBA podcast.
Lunch with Norm. Lunch with Norm. Lunch with Norm.
Okay, today we are going to discuss how to pinpoint and eliminate wasted marketing when it comes to Amazon. Our guest is a co-founder and co-CEO of Recast, a platform that helps sellers stop wasting their advertising budget. Before founding Recast, he built the marketing science team at the men's grooming brand, Harry's Grooming. He's passionate about taking cutting-edge statistical techniques. How's that? Techniques and helping marketers drive better performance for their business. And today we're talking to Michael Kaminsky, and we'll be talking to Michael just in a second. But first, we'll have a word from our sponsor. Facing cash flow challenges with your e-commerce business? Discover Viably, your ultimate financial ally. From real-time sales data integrations to immediate funding access, Viably is here to support you. Plan your growth with their free tool for online sellers and engage with specialists whenever you need. Extend your cash flow with Viably. All right. Where is the Squire, the mayor of Blunderville?
Hey. We're back. We're here.
We're back. It's taken a little bit of time, but we're back, and I'm going to sneeze.
We're 5 minutes late, but that's what happens when we're back from vacation. Good to see everyone. We've got Cool Hand 99 joining us, and Steve. We saw Steve on the cruise as well, so good to see you, Steve. I hope you're doing well. And we've got a couple big updates. We got some events coming up that we want to share with you guys, and yeah. Oh, he's going for another sneeze. And
I know, man. And it doesn't stop at 2. It's got to be 2 or 3 or 4. So you'll be taking over for a few seconds here.
No problem.
All right. So why don't you give us an update about the cruise? How did you like it?
It was great. We got to meet a ton of new people. A lot of people from the last cruise as well. So it's always great to reconnect with everyone. Kitty, Chris, we've got the whole Wizards of e-commerce people over there. Alex did a great job hosting the events for everyone, and overall just a great experience. Had some great weather as well, I would say.
Yeah.
How about you?
Got to play a little bit. Well, you did. I worked. You played.
I saw you play a little bit too.
Oh, maybe a little bit. Cigars,
Lots of cigars.
Yeah, lots of cigars. Kevin King was there. Abe was there. There was tons. Ed, there's so many people. I don't know if you guys saw, but we had a night where we always have a cigar night. Well, every night's a cigar night. But the one day, there must have been 20 people out there with us, I think. And that was an awesome picture. Steve was out there as well that night. And that's what I love about it. I say it 1,000 times, but I love events. But I love being able to go out there. For us, it's cigars. We sit out there. I don't drink, but, have a cigar. Some people have drinks, but it's just a way to sit down over a few hours, many hours, and just talk and have a great time. So if you haven't joined us at any of these events, and you do, there's always a cigar night. So, we'd love to see everybody out there. Also, Chris is having an event. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Chris McCabe, he's having his Seller Velocity event, and he let us know that there's an early bird special. It's 25% off up until February 9th. So I'm going to drop the link right here. It's SVC 24 early bird is the code. So check that out. I'll post that across the different platforms. And then one other just quick update is our WhatsApp group. So I just want to mention this really quickly before we get to Michael. We did some changes, little tweaks to the WhatsApp group where we added subgroups. So now we have our Lunch with Norm kind of community group, but we've gone and broken it down into some smaller groups. So we have our PPC lounge and what was the sourcing lounge. So I'm going to be adding a few other ones. We're testing it with these two, and then if the response is good, we're going to be opening it up, probably a networking one, a Walmart's, social media room. So these are all different areas where you can go and ask specifically those questions, because it's just, we're getting so many messages in that WhatsApp group. We just need to break it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's going to help with everybody. I forget who it was, but somebody was asking about Walmart, and that's very specific. So I'm waking up and there's 100 messages in the group. So I think it's going to help also just specify if you're looking for something specific, you can go in there and do that. The other thing, just mentioning, and we're on it. We've made it not an invite only, but you have to answer a question, right, Kels? You have to be approved, because we were starting to get spammers. The group grew quite a bit last week, and all of a sudden we got these idiots that are spamming people, and again, these idiots are reaching out to people that are in the group. So a second that we hear about that, they're taken out. So just want to let you know. And if you are listening and you are planning on spamming, don't even join, because we're not there for the spammers, and we will kick you out.
And he means it too.
And I mean it.
All right, so I'm posting a link. The links are in the captions too. We do have a cutoff time today, so we'll be ending it in the hour. But I think we're all set. And if you have any questions, just feel free to message me or DM me, and I think we're good to go.
All right. And I just thought of this. I didn't have the other two sneezes, Kels. That's pretty good.
Look at that.
Yeah. Woo. Cooking with oil. All right. So sit back. No, don't sit back yet. If you have any questions or comments, throw them in the comments section. Now sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, enjoy the show. And let's welcome our first time guest, Michael.
Howdy, Norm. I am so excited to be here.
It's great to have you on.
I'm really angling to get invited to one of these next cigar chats. It sounded very nice.
Oh, you know what? And they go on. I think the earliest we got out of there was 2:00 in the morning. But we usually do it between, we start fairly early and it lasts between, we've gone to bed at 4:30. We've watched the sun come up.
Those are some pretty intense cigar chats, it sounds like.
They are, but leave it to Kevin. But we had a great time. As a matter of fact, I mean, there were so many people there that I knew, but I didn't really know. And then over this period of time, Abe, who listens all the time, he sums it up when he says that you start off as acquaintances and you leave as friends. And this is, we're talking about events like the cruise, where you get to know people over a 7 or 8 day period, or, the CMS thing that's coming up from Kevin and I. You've seen each other, you've talked to each other very briefly, but you really don't know each other. And that only happens when you break bread. But
that's exactly right.
Let's talk about what we got going on today. So we got something interesting here. So I saw, that we're going to be talking about, because usually I don't know what we're going to be talking about, but how to pinpoint and eliminate wasted marketing. All right. So you got my attention. Let's start talking about that. And this is specific to Amazon, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just not, what I want to talk about today is, I think, general marketing measurement principles that are really sort of will apply to any different distribution channel, whether that's Amazon or your e-commerce business or Target or Walmart or whatever. But I think it is important, especially for like the entrepreneurs who are listening, to start to think about how are we going to scale our marketing program, and then how are we going to avoid just lighting money on fire as part of that process.
Right. And one of the big ones that came up, and this was the old iOS 14.5. And that kind of all of a sudden with the with the issues that it had with the security. Let's talk about that. Like, what does that look like? What does the world of post 14.5 look like?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, just for the people who are listening who might be more or less familiar with what actually happened here, effectively, Apple put into place some rules known as ATT, or App Tracking Transparency, that limited how much information could be shared between specific applications on mobile devices and other applications or a browser. And this made it so that applications like Facebook or Instagram had less ability to track people from their usage on the app to making a purchase, and therefore also impacted their ability to target people, right? Because the way that Facebook works as a marketing channel is there's this cycle where people buy products and then Facebook uses that information to target other similar people who it thinks are likely to buy. So all that is to say is that when iOS 14.5 rolled out with these app tracking transparency rules, it made it a lot more difficult for any of these like walled garden advertisers to target people specifically. And then across the entire ecosystem, it just made it more difficult to track people in their activity, especially in between mobile apps. And so that had sort of cascading effects on different businesses in terms of how they report out on, what different advertising or what different advertisements led to a click and a subsequent purchase, as well as just the ability to do this targeting from each of these different walled gardens.
So because of this, there's inaccurate information now. And how do you even start to market if you don't have the proper information?
So I think this is a really good question. And this is a place where I actually, I like to tell marketers to take a step back and think about the grand history of marketing, right? So between like 2005 and 2020, right, there was sort of this golden age of e-commerce marketing in particular, right? We had this ability to really track people across the internet and see what ads they clicked on before they purchased. And that allowed a bunch of these really big e-commerce first brands to be built. Brands like Away, brands like Harry's, where I worked, Warby Parker, et cetera. A lot of these brands that I think a lot of people listening are very familiar with. But it's important to remember that was only a period of about 15 years. And before that, we didn't really have the ability to track people at all between advertising and purchase. If you saw an ad on TV and then you went into Target and bought a Coke, right? There's no way to link that together. And so really it was just a small period of time where we had this ability to really efficiently track people across all of their different marketing touch points and an eventual purchase. But the world of marketing is much bigger, and the history of marketing is considerably bigger than that. And so I generally say to people that, you definitely can advertise today without that ability to perfectly track people. It's just a matter of getting smart about how do we measure our marketing and what other tools outside of just digital tracking can we use in order to measure that effectiveness. And this is a place where things like experimentation come in. Different ability to, can we go 2 weeks without advertising and then 2 weeks with a bunch of advertising and then 2 weeks turning it off and then just look at what happened. There's all kinds of different levers that we have in order to measure advertising effectiveness. It's not quite as easy anymore as just logging into Google Analytics and getting an answer. But it's actually the case that a lot of those data in Google Analytics, even prior to iOS 14.5, were actually leading you astray anyway. So all of those pieces, I think, come together. But I think it's a great opportunity for really smart and sophisticated entrepreneurs to think really hard about the right way to do marketing measurement and then build that as a good foundation to build a business on.
I'm kind of curious. So you're the co-founder, co-CEO of Recast. And what are you primarily focusing on?
So at Recast, we do what is called media mix modeling. Which effectively means it's a statistical model where we work with brands and we ingest their marketing activity data and their sales data, and then use a top-down statistical model in order to find patterns in that data. So the idea is like, look, on days when you spend a little bit more on TV, controlling for everything else, how many additional sales do you get than what would be expected otherwise? And there's a whole lot of statistics and machine learning that go into making this happen. But the nice thing about it is it doesn't rely on tracking at all. This is actually, the idea behind this is quite old, right? People have been doing media mix modeling since the 1960s, effectively, with the idea being that, you know, back before the days of the internet and e-commerce, there was no way to do this tracking. If someone saw an ad on TV and then made a purchase in the grocery store, you couldn't connect those two things together.
Right.
There was just no way to do it. And so you had to measure marketing effectiveness at this higher statistical level. And that's effectively what we're doing at Recast.
Is there anything that you're looking at, any form of market? I love old school marketing, but is there any type of marketing that you're doing right now that you notice is performing better than any other form of marketing for Amazon sellers?
So, really good question. So for Amazon sellers, I think there's a lot of things to think about. I can say that in a couple of instances now, we have noticed that brands have been undercrediting their YouTube marketing. And so the reason for this is because, I'm sure a lot of people here can reason about, when you watch a video on YouTube, you see when you watch videos on YouTube, you see lots of ads. I watch most of my YouTube videos actually on my TV while I'm lying on the couch, and I see a ton of ads, but I very rarely click that button that says send to phone. I just never want to do that. I have never done that. But that doesn't mean that those ads aren't having an effect on me. And it doesn't mean that I'm not, going to go look up these products later, or potentially on my phone, potentially on some other device. And so what we have seen is that a lot of these brands that are relying on click or touch-based tracking to measure the effectiveness of their YouTube ads in particular have been undercrediting that channel, because those ads are actually driving a lot of business to Amazon for them. But there's no way to actually make that connection between the ad and the eventual purchase. And so, maybe they have an e-commerce site, the CPA, the cost per acquisition for YouTube ads on their e-commerce site is really high, just because of this phenomenon that I was just describing, where people don't click on the ads that much. But once you account for the untracked conversions and the conversions on Amazon, all of a sudden those ads start to look really, really efficient. So that's a good example. I think YouTube is a really interesting and really powerful channel if you can figure out how to make it work for your business and figure out the right way to measure it, which generally isn't just going to be on a purely click-based method.
Yeah, even without the ad, I love YouTube. It's just, you can do so much with it. Not only can you take a video, you can repurpose that video. I'm talking about just, cut it down like we do with this show. But if you've got a press release, you can pop it in there. You can embed the video. You can embed the video in blogs, in your social media. There's just so much you can get out of one simple video. And I agree 100% with you.
And there's I've seen a number of brands that have built their whole business on an organic video basis. There's the Japanese katana sword brand. I don't know if y'all have seen them around, but they've built an enormous video largely on the back of just producing great YouTube content that people love to watch and then linking out to their store under that. And it's been amazing to see.
So going back to Harry's, where was the main marketing focus? Was it YouTube?
So it's been a long time since I've been at Harry's, but back in the day, we were fortunate during my time at Harry's in that we built that business at a time when there was a lot less competition for digital marketing channels. And so a lot of that business was built on the back of, in particular, Facebook and Google marketing, back when CPMs, cost per impressions, were just a lot cheaper, because a lot of the major brands and the large marketing spenders hadn't figured out how to operate those channels, and that there was a really big opportunity there. And so huge amount of focus on those channels back in the day in the 2015, 2017 era. Harry's was also one of the earlier brands to actually advertise on podcasts, which was really cool to be a part of. And again, this is a time when people didn't really understand how podcasts work, and so you could get a spot on a huge podcast that had tons of listeners for very cheap, because no one else was advertising on it. And people were like, "What is a podcast?" And so I think one of the things that Harry's did really well is we were really good about going out and trying to find those undiscovered channels, figuring out how do you actually make this channel work efficiently, spend a lot of money on that channel, get a lot of business from it. And then once that channel starts to tap out or get more expensive because other advertisers are entering, we would go and look for that next channel. And I think that approach is, I think, really interesting for, I think, the people listening today to be thinking about is like, it's really hard to get really good efficiency today on like Google search and Facebook because those channels are so efficient and there's so many other advertisers on it. But what are those other channels that are maybe a little bit underexploited relatively, and that you can go and figure out how to operate on and that you can go get a really good return on?
Now, before we get any further, just anybody listening today, we've got a bunch of listeners and would love to get some questions in. So if you're looking at different ways of marketing or how to pinpoint or eliminate wasted marketing, throw your question or comment over in the comment section, and we'll get to it later on in the podcast. All right, so let's talk about the concept of incrementality and why marketers should care about it.
Yeah, so incrementality, I think it's definitely sort of a buzzword, and I think over the last year or so, people have been talking about it a lot more. It's a critically important concept, and it's actually the thing that I think it's really by far the most important things that marketers should be thinking about. And so, what do we mean when we use the word incrementality? The idea behind incrementality is that we want to understand the true causal relationship between marketing activity that we're doing and then downstream purchases. The problem that many of y'all are familiar with is that just because someone saw an ad or clicked on an ad before they purchased doesn't mean that ad caused the purchase, right? You can imagine this in the context of branded search. And this could be branded search on Google or even branded search on Amazon. If a user's coming to that search bar and they type in your brand name and then they eventually make a purchase, well, just because they clicked on that, the top blue link or the promoted link in Amazon doesn't mean that they wouldn't have purchased anyway, right? They probably clicked on that because it was the top link. And if it wouldn't have been there, they would have just scrolled down to your organic listing and made a purchase based off of that. And so the question that you always want to be asking yourself as a marketer is, did this piece of advertising, did this piece of marketing actually cause additional people to purchase? Or is it just associated with the purchase for a bunch of different reasons that could be happening? This can happen with discounting as well, right? People do these Black Friday sales. They get huge amounts of sales on one day, but how much did that discount itself actually matter? Were people going to purchase because they're used to purchasing on Black Friday? Did you just give away a bunch of profit margin through that discounting process? These are the things that you want to be thinking about as a marketer. And that's the idea behind incrementality, right? Is the marketing activity truly driving incremental new sales, or is it just capturing the effective sales that were going to happen anyway?
Got it. Okay, we're at the bottom of the hour. And yes, sorry for starting a little bit late. I had to get everything hooked up. Camera wasn't working. But anyways, it's all working now. We're at the bottom of the hour. And if you're new to the podcast, we have something called the Wheel of Kelsey at the top of the hour. And that's where we give away a prize. All you need to do to enter is hashtag Wheel of Kelsey or tag 2 people and get a second entry. Today's prize, it's either or. You can either have us write or distribute, both actually, a press release for you, or you can get the Tariff Terminator. Now, anybody, and I see that Steve's on here, and there's probably a few others that were on the cruise, but Afalabi Orokon, my partner in Honu, did a presentation that went over why it's so important to use this Tariff Terminator. Now, it's free to use for anybody. However, 80% of the people that we take a look at their tariff save, 80% save. We just did a study, and just one person recently saved $17,000 on one shipment that they were bringing over. Afalabi saved over $300,000 on his products that he was bringing over, and he can go through that. That's a whole other podcast. But if you've never heard of Tariff Terminator, first of all, understand that it's not an HS code, it's an HTS code. These are the taxes or tariffs the government charge you when you're bringing products in. And I want anybody who's not familiar with that to understand that 80% are getting charged way too much. 80%, including in that 80%, have the wrong tariff code that could be, and he uses, and he showed this on the cruise, where a baby carriage was had a tariff code of a national flag. Now, that was the broker trying to bring it in with the wrong tariff code, which, if he was ever caught, and I'm talking about the Amazon seller, that would be a penalty, 4 times the makeup of the tax, and they go back the lifetime of that product. So you just want to be very careful, and that's why we're offering this tariff terminator today. It's a $500 value. So only if we save you money, you get a charge, and that's $500, but our typical savings is $8,000. So check it out. That's the wheel. Press release today or tariff terminator. The reason I'm spending some time on it is a lot of sellers have come up to me and asked me about it, especially on the cruise. And it kind of hit me that a lot of people don't really realize what that is. So check it out. If you're interested, hashtag Wheel of Kelsey, tag 2 people, you get that second entry of either or prize. And now let's go to a word from our sponsor. This episode of Lunch with Norm is sponsored by VA. Hello, and we're back, Kelsey. This episode of Lunch with Norm is sponsored by VAA Philippines. Looking for a high-quality virtual assistant for your business? With the rigorous screening, intensive Amazon and Walmart training, and ongoing professional development, get the peace of mind with skilled and motivated virtual assistants for a long-term working relationship. Hire through VAA today, and now let's get back to the show. Kelsey, your mother brought me coffee, and the dog just came home and he was counter surfing. You could hear him just grabbing knives and whatever he could while mom was down here. Yeah, it's pretty funny. So let's get back to this. Another thing I want to talk about is so many times, I still do it. It's hard not to do it, but throwing good money away in your advertising. Can you show us like a lot of the different mistakes sellers are doing right now that you're just throwing out, you're wasting your money?
Yeah. So a really good example that I think everyone should be thinking really hard about and take a close look at is, in your Amazon ads account. And I think there are a bunch of different ways that you can just be throwing money away. And a lot of this is related to this idea of incrementality that we were just talking about, right? Which is, if you're spending money in your Amazon ads account, are you getting true incremental new purchases for that? Or are you just paying Amazon a bunch of money for these clicks and purchases that you were going to get anyway? One of the guys from Simple Modern, they're like a really big Amazon seller. He had a Twitter thread a couple of months ago about a bunch of experiments that they ran on Amazon, looking at, hey, how truly incremental are these sales and which types of ads are more or less incremental depending on exactly which strategy that they were using. So I'd advise y'all to go and check that out. But anyways, the point is that you want to be thinking about, okay, how incremental is this? What is my actual strategy? If people are doing branded search, for example, how much do we actually want to bid on those terms, or do we expect that they're going to purchase anyway? How competitive is my category, right? That will all impact how truly incremental those dollars are. And the thing that I would push you sellers to start to think about is, how can we actually experiment with this? Can we do things like, turning off Amazon ads in certain geographies, but not others? I don't actually recall exactly what's available within the Amazon ads platform, but that's an interesting idea that you can start to play with, right? Turn off ads in only Florida for 2 weeks and see what happens. Do your sales dip in Florida, or do they stay flat? That can tell you about the true incrementality of those ads. Additionally, even just like ramping up spend and then ramping it down in order to be able to correlate that advertising spend with your total volume of sales can be another good way to start to think about, is there actually a relationship here? Because you can't just take for granted what you see in that Amazon ads account or in your Google ads account or in your Facebook ads account, right? Those, someone who saw this ad and then purchased, or someone who clicked on this ad and then purchased, those are associative measures. They're not causal. And so they can't tell you about true incrementality, and therefore they can mislead you. And it is in the interest of all of these different platforms to try to show the data in the best light. And so it's critically important for you to be super skeptical about all of these different views of the metrics that you're seeing, and then think really hard about, how can I prove that this is actually working, that it's actually incremental sales that it's driving, and then, be dynamic in how you allocate those advertising dollars in order to get that additional signal.
Okay, let's talk about something a little bit. And my dog is down here now, leaning against me and distracting me. So I'll probably mess up these questions. But tell us a little bit about the importance of the role, like the measurement methods like MMM and lift test have, and the important role to play when digital tracking is becoming worse.
Yeah, that's a great topic to talk about. So digital tracking, right, will always be important. It's always useful to know how many people saw or clicked on an ad prior to purchase, and then see trends in that. But I think it's really important, especially as your brands are growing, to start to think about layering on these additional types of measurement into your practice. And so experimentation is one. And I talked about a couple of different ways of doing that. You can do geo holdout experiments, where you run ads in some geographies and not in others, and then look at the relative purchase rates between those geographies in order to understand incrementality. You can do go dark tests, right, where it's like, we're just going to turn off branded search for 2 weeks and see what happens. eBay did a famous version of this about 12 or 15 years ago, where they just totally turned off branded search for a couple of weeks to see what would happen to their total purchase volume. And it turned out that their total purchase volume just stayed flat. It didn't dip at all. And they were then able to save, at the time, 10, 20 plus $1 million a year, because they were paying Google huge amounts of money for all of those clicks that they didn't need to. If someone, types into Google search eBay socks, they're just looking to go to eBay and search for socks, right? There's no reason that eBay needed to pay Google for that, for all of those clicks. And so thinking about how you can work that into your practice, I think is really good. And then MMM, media mix modeling, is a really powerful tool, generally for brands that are at scale, right? And generally what we talk about is like, when is it worth it to start thinking about adding on MMM? We generally say like $5 to $10 million a year in paid media spend across multiple different channels. And so that's probably larger than, the vast majority of just pure Amazon sellers. But once you start to get to that scale, that might be a good time to start thinking about adding on a technique like MMM that can help you allocate those marketing dollars across a bunch of different channels. You're running on TV, you're doing radio, you're doing Facebook, you're doing all of these major marketing channels. And that's a place where a tool like media mix modeling can be really helpful.
Okay. So you touched on this before, and I think this is really interesting because one of the companies I have is a press release company, and people come back to me and they try to say, how can we measure, putting out a press release? Well, you're not going to get much off of one, of course, but it's that constant question. How do I measure that effect? So how do you measure the effects of marketing channels that you can't track?
It's a really good question. Press releases are an interesting one. So press releases are hard because I think a lot of the value so there's, if you think about, what is the effect of a press release, right? There's probably some immediate effect when the press release gets distribution. So the press release gets distribution to all of these other channels that republish the press release, and then that drives some amount of awareness of your product. And so you maybe see a spike in sales. And there's ways to start to think about measuring that, right? Like, is that spike detectable above what's normal or not? And there's different statistical methods that you can use to try to detect that. Beyond that, though, a lot of the value of a press release comes from like SEO build up over the long term, because you now have more links to your site from more authoritative sources. And therefore this is this like long building compounding effect. And it's the long building compounding effect that is really, really difficult to measure. It's actually, I think, I have never seen a way that I was convinced of like, hey, we actually have a good way of measuring this effect. And so there are some things in marketing that you just sort of have to do on faith alone, or based on your particular marketing strategy and how you're going to approach the world. This is a thing that we think a lot about, like at Recast, for the advertising that we do. I spend a lot of time, going onto podcasts and talking to people, and that has a cost of time associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult to measure, but it's part of our long-term strategy for how we think about marketing. And so another thing that's really important, I think, is to understand the limitations of measurement, and then not be afraid to do marketing that is difficult to measure, right? Just understand what the limitations are and what your tolerance bounds are for spending money onto a channel that isn't going to be possible to measure very accurately. And then just having to have faith that, hey, we're following a strategy and we believe it's going to work, and we're not going to be able to measure it perfectly, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's funny because you could go and you could talk about press releases, and yes, I'm Canadian, about nay, but so I can go and I could talk about press releases and the importance of press releases because it gives you authority. It does give you the SEO rank. I don't think you're going to get a ton of traffic off of it unless you do a very expensive press release, but there's a marketing technique or strategy behind it. As much as I talk about it, I will have that one person that will buy the one and the cheapest press release and start screaming because they never got national exposure for every single keyword that they have in their arsenal. And it's frustrating when that happens. It's kind of comical, but I mean, it does happen. And it's just, you've got to be able, like for me with press releases, it's the authority. It's the touch points. It's people being able to see you when they type in your name, that you're there and you're published on many other sites, or influencers talking about you. And then you take all these different channels and you start, like you said, mixed media, and you're out there and you're getting these different touch points. If you don't do that and you're just going in with one touch point, it's like only selling on Amazon and you get that email, the nasty email, and all of a sudden you're suspended and then you're screwed, that's just my thoughts.
No, I think it's right. And I think, it's definitely important to be realistic about what's measurable and what's not. And then to think about what's the holistic marketing strategy and how are we going to pull this all together. I actually think that a lot of performance marketers over the last 10 or 15 years got lulled into a false sense of security by being able to go and look at the Facebook ads panel or the Google ads panel or the Amazon ads panel and feel a sense of comfort and being like, oh, great, I don't have to think about anything. Like, it's all just right here.
Right.
But that was never true, right? That you always needed to be thinking about something. And now that those tools are starting to, get worse and things are getting more competitive, now is the time when it's like, oh man, we actually do have to some extent go back to basics and really think about the mechanics of marketing and what our strategy is and what we want to go do and how we want to present ourselves out in the world in order to be successful. And I think it's hard and scary, right? It's a lot easier to be like, oh, I would just want to give Facebook $1,000 and then have them go build my business for me. But I think the world just isn't that simple. And so it's a good opportunity for really good entrepreneurs to ask themselves the hard questions, take the hard approach, and then think strategically about what all of their different marketing activity is going to do for them.
Very good. Okay, so let's go to a question from Rad.
All right. So this question from Rad is, which is a better marketing tool, social media, affiliate marketing, or influencer marketing? Where should you start?
Oh, great question. The answer is yes. I mean, they're all really good marketing, or they're all really good marketing channels, right? It depends a lot on your particular interest, what you're good at, your brand, your business, how it works, as to which of these are going to be most effective for you. So paid social media, Facebook being the giant in the room, is an incredibly effective marketing channel. Probably the most effective and easy to use marketing channels that's ever been existed. It has an enormous amount of reach. So many people are on one of the Facebook properties that you can reach enormous amounts of people. Their machine learning algorithms are very, very good. And so they're able to target people really, really effectively. But the problem is that it's really competitive, right? And so there's not a lot of free lunch there. You have to be really good. You need to have a really good product. You need to have really good creative in order to make that work. But it's scalable. So if you can make it work, you can deploy a lot of dollars in that channel and build a really big business on top of it. Influencer marketing, I think, is an incredible channel. There's a lot of brands that have been built on the back of different versions of influencer marketing. You could think about, a brand like Skims from Kim Kardashian and her clan that has been able to build a really big brand, as far as I know, with relatively little paid media spend because they do the influencer stuff so well. There's a lot of different examples of that. And so if you are sort of particularly good at working with influencers and you have a product that is like really visually appealing, so you can get a lot of distribution through a channel like YouTube or TikTok or whatever, then I think influencer marketing can be a really, really good channel for you. But it takes a lot of work because you have to negotiate all of these deals with all of these individual influencers and get them to do a good, have good shots of your product and not be too far off brand. And so there's a lot of complexity there. But if you can figure out how to make that work and how to build the processes that allow you to scale that channel, incredibly efficient. Affiliates, I think sort of get a bad name in marketing because there's a lot of affiliate practices that can feel a little bit scammy. But that being said, if you have a product that is well suited to affiliate marketing, having a really good affiliate marketing a really good affiliate marketing program can allow you to build a really big business. The problem with affiliate is always the problem of incrementality. There are things like coupon sites, right? Which I think, again, we should all be asking ourselves, or is that actually driving additional conversions? Or do people just get to the checkout page, go to Google, type in my brand name coupon, click on that link, copy the coupon code and paste it in? If they're doing that, right, then you're just giving away margin and not actually getting any benefit from it. And so affiliates, I think, again, can be really, really good channels for people, but you have to be really good at managing the affiliates and making sure that you're not just giving away a bunch of dollars to these different affiliate programs that you're working with, some of which I think definitely have a reputation for being not very incremental and not very good for the brands that they're working with.
All right. Okay. So we're coming to the end of this segment. You want to talk a little bit about Recast and just talk about the company?
Sure. Yeah. So Recast, again, like I mentioned, we do media mix modeling. My background is in statistics and causal inference. I used to work in healthcare, doing a bunch of analyses on, hey, treatment A versus treatment B, what yields better outcomes. And I really feel like my work at Recast is an extension of that, where we have a team of really talented statisticians and marketing scientists. We spend all of our time thinking about what's the right way to measure efficacy and how do we help some of the biggest brands in the world get rid of wasted marketing spend. And, this often adds up to millions or tens of millions of dollars a year for these really, really big brands. So anyways, that's what we do. We do media mix modeling. We have this really large, complex proprietary statistical model that we combine with machine learning algorithms in order to be able to help these brands find those patterns, dynamically optimize their marketing budgets to take money out of lower performing channels and reallocate it to higher performing channels. And I just love it because it's a really fun academic statistical problem that we get to use to help brands save millions of dollars a year.
Very good. So if people want to get more information about Recast, how do they get in contact with you or the brand?
Yeah, so you can always visit our website at getrecast.com. On our blog, we have a ton of material on all sorts of problems related to marketing measurement. And so if this is a thing that's interesting to you, I would definitely recommend you go check it out. Also, you should follow me on LinkedIn. Michael Kaminsky. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm always talking about different marketing measurement problems. So that's a good place to find that content. And, if you have a question, you can always ask me something there.
All right. Okay. So, Kels, I'm going to read the sponsor live read. If you are interested in coming into the Wheel of Kelsey today, it's hashtag Wheel of Kelsey. Tag 2 people and you'll get a second entry. Today's giveaway is either or. You can get a press release or you can get the Tariff Terminator, which could save you thousands and thousands of dollars on your next shipment. Okay, so let's go over to Seller Basics and let me get this set up. Hey, Amazon sellers, ever faced with suspension? Let's try this again. Hey, Amazon sellers, ever faced with account suspensions, ASIN hiccups, or IP headaches? Introducing Seller Basics, your account's guardian. With just $99 a month, or if you type in the code NORM, it's $89 a month. Seller Basics offers a dedicated team to shield your business from these challenges. Plus, this membership offers free legal consultations from seasoned e-com attorneys, no long-term contracts, and cancel with just a month's notice. View Seller Basics as your account health specialist, or I should say your Amazon account health plan. Check out Seller Basics at sellerbasics.com. And here's a disclaimer. Seller Basics isn't an insurer law firm. Consultations come from independent firms. Results may vary. Memberships needed before events leading to claims, and terms apply. That's it. Wow. Haven't read that in a week, and 2 bloopers in one read. How's that? Okay, let's go over to the wheel.
It's time for the Wheel of Kelsey.
All right, here we go.
Okay, here's the Wheel of Kelsey. Thank you, everyone who entered today's giveaway. And let's see who the winner is. Okay. It looks
Kyle.
like it is
Congrats.
Kyle. So Kyle, if you could please email me, kate@lunchwithnorm.com. We'll set you up with your prize. And congratulations, everyone.
All right, very good. Okay, Michael, thank you so much for coming on.
This was a blast, Norm. Thanks for having me.
I hope you don't mind our casual style.
I love it. I'm taking notes over here. I love the Wheel of Kelsey. I love the intro video. It's thrilling.
Okay, very good. Well, we're gonna have to come back. Have you come back, and when my computer's working. So we'll even start on time the next time. How's that?
I cannot wait. I'm looking forward.
All right. Okay, everybody. I hope you liked our topic today. We've never talked about this. So let us get your feedback. If you want to put it in the comments section now or throw it over in our WhatsApp group, that would be awesome. Where is the mayor of Blunderville?
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for watching today's episode. As we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we have made some changes to our WhatsApp group. So we've added a few more subgroups underneath. So we're starting with PPC and sourcing. You can already see the sourcing one is taking off. So if you have questions specific to sourcing, you can join that group. But then there's our main hub with everyone in it. So check that out. The links are in the captions. And if you haven't already, sign up for our newsletter where we're getting our top guests and information over on that newsletter every week. It's curated. It takes about 4 to 5 hours every week to create that newsletter. So a lot of time and effort goes into that. So check that out if you want to hear more about Norm's stories from the past. And it's a good
The shark. This week is the shark.
That is right. It's
yes.
The shark attack. So check that out and let me know how you are liking it.
Okay, so that's it. Thank you. Today, we're back. We've been off for the last 4 podcasts, and I was away the week before that. So it's been a little bit crazy, but we've got everything back in the studio. So I hope we're okay from this point forward. That'll be up to me and my bloopers. And Kelsey, coming on time. It's really me. I'm sorry. But all right, everybody. We'll see you on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget, we've got 4 different types of communities set up. Watch the podcast, get onto our newsletter, enter over to our WhatsApp group, or go to the Facebook group. We got you covered. We'll see you later.
Lunch with